Now think about just a week ago, with the Musk messy divorce blowing up, including resurfaced allegations that Trump was on the Epstein tapes, Trump failures on the international stage in Ukraine and the Middle East. Well, Trump decided he'd change the subject.
Well, if Donald Trump gets dementia, how will we know? Donald Trump's mental decline, which is more and more obvious, started from such a low level of mental processing power that it's hard to track his decline. It's from low to lower. And then there are days like today when Donald Trump asks himself out loud in public if he is allowed to appoint himself chair of the Federal Reserve. Now, it may be tiresome to hear, but we must not grow weary of making the point that no other president was ever capable of saying anything as stupid or as indicative of dementia as that. Am I allowed to appoint myself chair of the Federal Reserve? And we must not grow weary of reminding ourselves what the White House press corps would have done if Joe Biden ever said anything like that, and how big the headlines would be in the next day's print editions of the New York Times and the Washington Post and every newspaper in the country. Because if we grow weary of making the point of how singularly stupid and possibly clinically demented Donald Trump's statements are, then we will become part of the normalization process of those statements, which most of the American news media has unwittingly participated in. And 14-year-olds in this country will think it's perfectly normal for a president to say those things.
This is the state that we find ourselves in with a fascist authoritarian regime who just has no regard whatsoever for the rule of law or decency or any sort of effective techniques to, I mean, because we've seen past presidents, past Democratic presidents to be specific, who have actually deported more people, but using the rule of law, using standard tactics to do that.
Right.
So there's another layer to this. And as I said, it's about scaring people. I think it's partially to scare anyone who would oppose them, but it's also to motivate anyone who might be here illegally to self-deport.
Right.
And it's not even people who are here illegally. I think this is more of a, I think we're in the realm of ethnic cleansing now. I think the demand is, if you have brown skin, if you're from someplace else, maybe a couple of hops, couple of ancestors down the road, you should leave, because we want to make America great again, which means we want to make America white again.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the elephant in the room in the immigration
Wasn't there?
policy.
I read somewhere there was a Native American that was pulled over. She was driving,
yes.
and she's like, "I'm from here. You're not."
Right. Yes. You should deport yourself.
You should go away. And they finally walked away, but she was right. Hey. And they only pulled her over because she had darker skin.
Right.
That's it. They didn't give her a ticket for a driving problem or anything like that. They were just trying to get her. And she's like, "I'm a Native American, dudes. I'm from here."
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's all racial profiling.
Yeah.
And that's something that has managed to fall through the cracks because it's become the tactics of ICE and the Trump administration are so over the top that something like racial profiling has become way down the list somehow of problems with the way the government operates and the way law enforcement operates specifically. And so this is another example where ICE agents see someone who has darker skin than they do.
Right.
So, that might be a migrant who's here that we need to get out. Otherwise, Stephen Miller is going to scream at us. So we're going to see more and more of this as time goes on.
Yeah, it's I have words that I'm not allowed to say.
I agree.
Only on your show can I say them.
Right.
So you mentioned this on your show yesterday about people, when you say something about the next election, that they're coming in on commenting, "Oh, Bob, we're not going to have another election," and expand upon what you're saying. And you're muting those people now. And, and deleting their comments if you can.
Well, I think we've all experienced that to some level. Every time I mention the upcoming midterms next year or the presidential election in 2028, the inauguration in 29, instead of, and this is always a problem that everyone has with social media and comments and replies, is that instead of addressing the point of the idea I was trying to present, what I tend to get, and what I think many of us tend to get in the replies is, oh, Bob, we're not going to have any more elections. So naive. Yeah. Democracy is over. Give it up. And I'm like, are we really going to do the job of the fascists for them? Right. Are we really going to help authoritarians along by just acquiescing on the future of democracy? And if we are, what are we even doing as far as online activism or any sort of activism, any sort of participation in the political debate? If democracy is in fact over, as my replies tell me every day, what's the point in addressing any of this stuff? So it's a level of defeatism that is doing the job of the authoritarians for them. If we've just given up, what's the point? So I think we need to be careful about normalizing the idea that there won't be any more elections, because yes, democracy is in danger. That's absolutely the case. I mean, we have to keep a close eye and remain vigilant in terms of this government doing anything. And it's not just the federal government, it's state governments, red state governments, pushing back on voting rights and eliminating voting rights for many, many people. I mean, it's well documented now, whether it's voter ID or voter suppression, purging voter rolls, things like that. But at the same time, we can't declare democracy dead until it's actually dead. And I don't think that that's going to happen. I'm feeling relatively positive that we will have future elections, and we'll have special elections between those, every 2 years, federal elections. And that's how it's going to go until it doesn't anymore. And obviously, when we see Donald Trump take actions that will stop elections from happening, we can start to move in that direction. But for now, it's just not going on. It's not happening that way because we have federalism in this country. States run the elections. Donald Trump has very little power in terms of superseding state-run elections. And in fact, it's so decentralized down to even individual precincts. Mm-hmm. So it's very challenging for a president to deal with elections with one fell swoop. And people say, well, what about martial law, Bob? Well, I really don't think Donald Trump will declare martial law. And I hope I'm correct on that, because one of the things that'll happen as soon as Donald Trump were to declare martial law is the Dow would drop by 50%. The economy would go into a massive meltdown. And that would more or less be the end of the Donald Trump presidency. He would lose whatever power that he had left. I mean, it would make COVID-19, the shutdowns and the economic recession that happened then and the Great Recession from 2008, 2009 look like a cakewalk.